What are some of the biggest challenges on the manufacturing side and the engineering side that you're facing in working to get to the first launch of New Glenn?
The first launch is one thing, and we'll do that in 2024 coming up in this coming year. The real thing that's the bigger challenge is making sure that our factory is efficiently manufacturing at rate. So rate production. So consider if you want to launch New Glenn, 24 times a year, you need to manufacture a upper stage, since they're expendable, every, twice a month. You need to do one every 2 weeks. So you need to have all of your manufacturing facilities and processes and inspection techniques and acceptance tests and everything operating at rate. And rate manufacturing is at least as difficult as designing the vehicle in the first place. And the same thing. So every upper stage has 2 BE3U engines. So those engines, you need, if you're going to launch the vehicle twice a month, you need 4 engines a month. So you need an engine every week. So that engine needs to be being produced at rate. And that's and there's all of the things that you need to do that, all the right machine tools, all the right fixtures, the right people, process, etc. So it's one thing to build a first article, right? So that's, to launch New Glenn for the first time, you need to produce a first article. But that's not the hard part. The hard part is everything that's going on behind the scenes to build a factory that can produce New Glenns at rate.
So the first one is produced in a way that's enables the production of the second, the third, and the fourth, and the fifth, and sixth.
You could think of the first article as kind of pushing it. It pushes all of the rate manufacturing technology along. In other words, it's kind of the it's the test article in a way that's testing out your manufacturing technologies.
The manufacturing is the big challenge.
Yes. I mean, I don't want to make it sound like any of it is easy. I mean, the people who are designing the engines and all this, all of it is hard, for sure. But the challenge right now is driving really hard to get to rate manufacturing, and to do that in an efficient way. Again, kind of back to our cost point. If you get to rate manufacturing in an inefficient way, you haven't really solved the cost problem, and maybe you haven't really moved the state of the art forward. All this has to be about moving the state of the art forward. There are easier businesses to do. I always tell people, look, if you are trying to make money, like start a salty snack food company or something. You
write that idea down.
Like make the Lex Fridman potato chips.
Don't say it. People are going to steal it. But yeah, it's hard.
You see what I'm saying? It's like there's nothing easy about this business, and but it's its own reward. It's fascinating. It's worthwhile. It's meaningful, and so I don't want to pick on salty snack food companies, but I think it's less meaningful. At the end of the day, you're not gonna have accomplished something amazing.
Yeah,
even if you do make a lot of money at it.
Yeah, there's something fundamentally different about the quote-unquote business of space exploration.
Yeah, for sure.
It's a grand project of humanity.
Yes, it's one of humanity's grand challenges. Yeah. And especially as you look at going to the moon and going to Mars and building giant O'Neill colonies and unlocking all the things. I won't live long enough to see the fruits of this, but the fruits of this come from building a road to space, getting the infrastructure. I'll give you an analogy. When I started Amazon, I didn't have to develop a payment system. It already existed. It was called the credit card. I didn't have to develop a transportation system to deliver the packages. It already existed. It was called the Postal Service and Royal Mail and Deutsche Post and so on. So all this heavy lifting infrastructure was already in place, and I could stand on its shoulders. And that's why when you look at the internet, by the way, another giant piece of infrastructure that was around in the early, I'm taking you back to like 1994, people were using dial-up modems, And it was piggybacking on top of the long distance phone network. That's how the internet, that's, how people were accessing servers and so on. And that, again, if that hadn't existed, it would have been hundreds of billions of capex to put that out there. No startup company could have done that. And so the problem, you see if you look at the dynamism in the internet space over the last 20 years, it's because, you see like two kids in a dorm room could start an internet company that could be successful and do amazing things because they didn't have to build heavy infrastructure. It was already there. And that's what I want to do. I'd take, my Amazon winnings and use that to build heavy infrastructure so that the next generation, the generation that's my children and their children, these, those generations can then use that heavy infrastructure. Then there'll be space entrepreneurs who start in their dorm room.
Yeah.
Like that will be a marker of success when you can have a really valuable space company started in a dorm room. Then we know that we've built enough infrastructure so that ingenuity and imagination can really be unleashed. I find that very exciting.
As they will, of course, as kids do, take all of this hard infrastructure building for granted.
Of course,
Which is the entrepreneurial spirit.
That's an inventor's greatest dream.
Yeah.
Is that their inventions are so successful that they are one day taken for granted. Nobody thinks of Amazon as an invention anymore. Nobody thinks of customer reviews as an invention. We pioneered customer reviews, but now they're so commonplace. Same thing with one-click shopping and so on.
Yeah.
But that's a compliment. That's how, you invent something that's so used, so beneficially used by so many people that they take it for granted.